Paparapapapam, Che poi perché questo? Paparapapapapa, paparaparapaparaparapapapapam, paparapapapapam, paparapapapapam, paparapapapapapapapapam, paparapapapapam, paparapapapapam, paparaparapapam. And welcome back on my Twitch for another day and another reading of the Quag Keep, the first novel of Dungeons and Dragons. Last time we read chapter 2 and 3 and we discover our heroes, the protagonist Milo Yegon, the werewolf berserker Neil Fangtooth, if I remember it well, and a cleric, a bard, an Amazon, an elf rogue, for be precise. I don't remember very well if the lizard man, the lizard folk, right? 7 in all, and they discover the truth behind their existence. So, after this brief introduction, and if you want to know more, listen to the past lives or videos on my YouTube channel, we go on with chapter 4, Out of Grey Oak. I verify a second. So I remember to all of you, I'm an Italian guy. I'm not very good at reading live English. I have a good comprehension of the text, but I'm not very skillful in speaking. So I want to improve, and reading English book is the best way to improve myself at this. So, chapter 4, Out of Grey Oak. Let's start. Parts of Grey Oak never slept. The great market of the merchants, edging both the thieves' quarter and the foreign section of the free city, was bright with the flares of torches and oil lanterns. People moved about the stalls, a steady din of voices arose. You could bargain here for a bundle of noisome rags, or for a jewel that unstopped some forgotten king's crown of state. To Grey Oak came the adventurers of the world. The successful brought things that they showed only behind the dropped curtains of certain booths. The prospective buyers could be human, elvish, dwarf even, or other followers of chaos as well as of law. In a free city, the balance stood a straight line between dark and light. There were guards who treaded among the narrow lanes of the stalls, but carrels were settled still to steal. In those they did not meddle, save to make sure riot did not spring full bomb from some scuffle. A wayfarer here depended upon his own weapons and wits, not upon any aid from those guardians of the city. Neil muttered to himself in such a low whisper that the words did not reach Milo through the subdued night roar of the market. Perhaps the swordsman would not have understood them, even if he had heard for to a berserker the tongue of beasts were as open as the communication of humankind. They had gone but a short way into the garish, well-lighted lines of booths when Fangtooth stopped, waiting for the other two, swordsman and elf, to come up with him. The pseudo-dragon still lay, Ferrous sleeping, curled above the massive lift of his throat. Under his ornately crowned helmet, his own face was flushed, and Milo could sense the heat of anger still building in the other. As yet that emotion was under iron control. Should it burst the dam, Niall might well embroil them all in a quick battle, picking some quarrel with a stranger to vent his rage against the wizard. "Do you smell it?" The berserker's voice sounded thick, as if his words must fight hard to win through the strangling anger. Under the rim of his helmet, his eyes swept back and forth, not to touch upon either of his companions, but rather, as if in that crowd he sought to pick out someone his axe could bring down. There were smells in plenty here, mainly strong, and more than half bordering on the full. Ingrid's head was up, his nostrils expanded. Ingrid is a very hard name to read. Hi. The elf did not look about him. Rather, it tested the steamy air as if he might separate one odor from all the rest, identify it, lay it aside, and try again. To Milo, the slight warning came last. First, because he had been too caught up in the constant flow of the scene about them. His sense for such was, of course, far less acute than that of his companions. But now, he felt the same uneasiness that had ridden him in the inn, as well as along the way the wizard's guide had taken them. Somewhere in this crowd there existed interest in them. "Chaos," Ingrid said, and then qualified that identification. "With something else, it is clouded." Neil snored. "It is of the dark and it watches," he returned, "while we walk under a geese. I wish I had that damn wizard's throat between my two hands to alter the shape of it, for good. It would be an act of impiety to fool my good skull splitter." He touched his axe, where it hung at his belt, "with his thin and treacherous blood." "We are watched." Milo did not address that as a question to either elf or berserker. But will it come to more than watching? He survived the crowd, now not seeking the identity of the foe. For unless the enemy made an overt move, he knew his scales could not detect the source of danger, but rather noting those places where they might set their backs to a solid wall and face a rush should that materialize. Not here, or yet. There was firm confidence in Ingrid's answer. Seconds later, the berserker grunted an assent to that. "The sooner that we ride out of this trap of a city," he had, "the better." His hand rose, and it touched with a gentleness that seemed totally alien to his shaggy and brutal strength the head of the pseudo-dragon. "I do not like cities, and this one stinks." The elf was already on the move, threading a way through the market crowd. Milo had an odd feeling that the three of them were nearly invisible. No hawker or merchant called them to look at his wares. Those about them were sometimes even seized by the cloak edges and urged to view this or that marvel so cheaply offered that no man could resist. A little note for all my viewers: I try to read more slowly, so that's why I have some issue, because I try to read more peacefully. He would have liked to linger by one display where the seller did not raise his head from his work as they pushed past. Here were dwarf-wrought armed swords, throwing knives, daggers, a mace or two, one large enough even to fit into Neil's paw. The owner stood with his back to them, his forge fire glowing so that the heat reached out as his hammer rose and fell in a steady beat upon metal. If what Istaspes had said was true, and Milo felt it was, even if he had carried twice as heavy a purse as that which the bracelet had brought him, he could not have spent a single piece at this booth. Those rules, dim and befogged, but still available. You understand it. In part to his memory, told Milo that he was already equipped with all that fate or the sorcery of this world would allow him. This way, just a little past the temptation of the swordsmith's forge, the elf took a sharp turn to the right. After passing between two more rows of booths, these smaller, less imposing than those they had earlier viewed, they came upon the far side of the market itself, where there were no more stalls, rather rope-walled corrals and picket lines and some cages set as a final wall. Here the live merchandise was in view. Camels, kneeling and complaining, placed by market regulation as far from the horse lines as possible, puffed out their full breath at passers-by. Beyond them was a small flock of oryx. Their mighty wings pinned tight up their feathered sides by well-secured restraints. Oryx were hard to handle and must be eternally watched. They just might answer to the elf's commands, but for a man to attempt to ride these winged steeds was folly. There were hounds, their leashes made fast to stakes driven deeply into the ground. They raised snarling lips as Neil paused, but backed away and whimpered when he looked upon them. A berserker was not their meat for the hunt. Their instinct told them that. Some felines followed from a cage, but kept to the shadow so only a dusky outline of its crouched body could be seen. It was on to the horses that Milo, now in the lead, moved eagerly. He began at once to study the mounts, which ranged from a trained war steed, its front hooves already shod with knife-edged battle shoes, to ponies whose ungroomed hides were matted with mountain weeds, and who rolled their eyes and tried to strike out with their hind feet at anyone reckless enough to approach them unwarily. To tame such as those was a thankless task. Milo wanted the warhorse. It was seldom one of those came into the open marketplace for sale, unless some engagement had left an army or a raiding party so bloated with loot they could afford to kill captured animals. But for such an expedition as faced them now, no, that fighting trained stallion could not last in a long wilderness or mountain hole. They were not even ridden, except in a battle, their owners having them led instead, while riding a smaller breed until the trumpets sounded. Resolutely, Milo turned from that prize, began eyeing critically the animals on a middle line. Beyond was stick-legged, uncarried farm stock, some already worn out and useless, better put out of their misery by a quick knock on the head. But on the other line, as he spot about a dozen rugged men, dark greys. Step mounts. What chance had brought those here? They were rather taken, probably, passed along across the more civilized country because they had long used stamina. They would be considered too light for battle, except for irregular cavalry, and too hard to control for farm service. Add to a careful choice from among them some of the better tempered of the mountain ponies for packing. Ingrid had already moved forward toward the very horses Milo had marked down. Elves had the animal speech. He could be communicating with the steppe mounts. "Those?" Neil asked. There was a dubious note in his voice, and Milo could understand why. In the first place, the berserker was the heaviest of their company. There was need for a powerful horse, one used to the weight of a large man, to carry him. Second, allied to such as Nile were, through their own particular magic to the animal worlds, some horses will not accept were near them at all going mad, at the scent which no human nose could pick up, until the change, but which seemed always present to animals. The Italian damn. So, there was swift movement at Nail's throat. The pseudo-dragon uncoiled with one latest snap of her slender body. Spreading her nearly transparent wings, she took off before the berserker could reach her with a futile grab. To sail with lazy wing beats through the air toward the horses. She hovered over and between two of the largest. Suddenly, as she had taken to flight, she folded wings again, settling on the back of the mount to the right. The horse flung up its head with a loud whinny, jerked against the lead rope, and turned its head as far as it could, endeavoring to see what had liked it. Then the mount stood still, its wild roll of eyes stopped. Nile logged. "A freighter's chosen for me." Sorry, I try to understand who speak now, but I didn't know really. So, "Your servant, sirs, you will deal?" Ingrid passed among the horses, slipping his hand lightly over haunch down shoulder. Thus it touched, nickered. Milo looked to the speaker. The man wore leather, with an over jacket of spotted black and white pony hide. A piece of his long, tousled hair flopped down on his forehead like a rugged forelock, and his teeth showed, large and yellowish and a white green. "Prime stock warriors," he waved a hand at the house lines. "Steppe stock," Milo answered neutrally. "Trained to a single rider's call." "True enough," the trader conceded without losing his grin. "Broke them out of Guelph. There was a man who raid over the border. But the young whelps who tried that had no luck. Forstin of Narm was doing a little raiding himself along the same general strip. He got some nomad skins to cover his storage chests, and I got the horses. Forstin heard the old tales, too, about a steppe man and his chosen horse. But you have an elf with you. Never heard tell that any one of them couldn't get into the skulls of anything that flew, crawled, or trotted, always supposing they were both of the law. And the nomads, they give lip service to terror. Not since I heard tell us the meaner lady ever bowed head to chaos." "How much?" Milo came directly to the point. "For how many warriors?" An old trick of the mountain country, again a memory that was only a part of him, took over Milo's mind. There were 7 of them, a dozen of the steppe mounts. For 2 reasons, it might be well to buy them all. First, it might possibly confuse that watcher or watchers whom they all sensed about the eventual size of their own party. To that, Milo decided, was probably a very faint hope. Second, once out in the wilderness, the loss of a single horse might mean disaster unless they had the spare. For none of them, even the cleric, who wore no armor, could be mounted on a pack pony. For the lot, Ingrid, back from his inspection, returned quietly. Neil stood to one side. It would seem that they were willing to leave this bargaining to the swordsman. Well, now, there was a slyness near open malice in the dealer's never-ending grin. These are seasoned stock, good for open country traveling. Also, this is a town where there are many who come to outfit a company. Step stock, repeated Milo stolidly. Are all your buyers then elves or dwarfs, perhaps? The trader looked. Now you think you got me by the short hairs with that one, warrior? Maybe, just maybe. I say 10 gold for each. You won't find their like this far east. Of course, if you plan to take them west, I'd go south of the steppes. The nomads are blood-feuding and won't take kindly to see a kinsman mount carrying a stranger. 5 pieces, Milo returned. You have just talked yourself into another ill tug with that warning, trader. The nomads may have already taken sword hot for the trail. Keep this and they could be willing to hunt the new riders down to meet Terra's maidens. Not even Sword's odds are going to bring them to Grey Oak, warrior, and I don't propose to ride west again neither. But you have a tongue on you, that's true. Say 8 pieces and I am out of purse in this bargain. In the end, Milo got the mounts for 6. He had the suspicion that he could have beaten that price lower, but the uneasiness that was growing in him until it was all he could do to not look over one shoulder or the other for that watcher of watchers. Weakened, his resolve to prolong the bargaining, he also bought 5 pack ponies, those Ingrid methodically selected, counting upon the half's skill to control that wilder mountain-born stock. Nails Afrita returned to sit on his shoulder, crouching there alert, her bright beds of eyes missing nothing. Ingrid had indicated his choice, and Milo was counting out a mixture of strange coins to equal the price of their purchases. When the elf's head swung left, his large green eyes sat aslant in his narrow face opened wide, his nostrils flared. There had been other men, among them a dwarf and a cloaked figure, whose species was well concealed by his body covering, drifting or walking with purpose through the animal lines. Neither Ingrid nor Neil had shown any interest in these. Now a man approached them directly, and it was plain he was seeking them in particular. His clothing was made of supple leather, not unlike that worn by the elf. However, it was not dyed green or dull grey-brown, such as became a ranger. Rather, it was a shiny, glossy black from the high boots on his feet to a tunic which had a flowing collar standing up so high about the back of his head as to form a dark frame from his withered, browned face. Over those garments, which reminded Milo of the shiny body casing of some great insect and might have been fashioned from such, as far as the swordsman knew, he wore a single splash of vivid color, a sleeveless tail-length vest, clipped together slightly below the throat with a round metal clasp, and made of short, plushy fur of a bright orange-red. A skull cap of the same fur covered the crown of his head, allowing to escape below his edging oily strands of hair as dark as his jerkin. Wait a second, I have to make the pause for work. I'll return in an instant. Make a little break. Okay, no, nothing of relevance. Sorry for the interruption. We can go on. Okay. Right. Sorry. Okay. There was an odd cast to his features, something that hint of mixed blood, perhaps of the elven kind. Yet his eyes, were not green, but dark, and they wore a half smile as he came up to them with the assurance of one certain of welcome. Milo glanced at Ingrid. The elf presented his usual impassive countenance. Yet, even without the use of any recognition spell, Milo knew, just as he had been able to sense the watchful waiting that had dogged them through the market, that this newcomer did not have elf favor. The stranger sketched a gesture of peace, his open palm out. He wore weapons, a blade which not twice as long as a fighting sword, nor short as a dagger. But somewhat between the two, and the throwing axe, both sheathed at his belt. Coiled in his right hip, drawing only when his vest swung open a bit, was something else, a long-lashed whip. "Greetings, warriors," he spoke with an assurance that matched his open approach. "I am Helagret, one who deals in rare beasts." He paused, as if awaiting introductions from the three in turn. Niall grunted. His big hand had gone up to stroke Afrita, and there was certainly not welcoming his lowering scowl. Milo tried to sharpen his sense of uneasiness. Was this their watcher came at last into the open? He glanced at Ingrid. From a fleeting change of expression on the elf's face, the swordsman knew that this was not the enemy. The swordsman dropped the last counted piece into the trader's grimy palm, then answered, since it would seem that the others left a reply to him. "Master Helagret, we have no interest in aught here save mounts." "True," the other nodded, "but I have an interest in what your comrade has, swordsman." He raised his hand, gauntleted in the same glossy leather, to point a forefinger at Afrita. "I am gathering specimens for my lord Fonduling of Faraz. He will have in his out garden the rarest of beasts. Already." Now he waved towards the line of cages. "I have managed to find a griff cat, a prime lizard, even a white sand serpent, warrior." Now he addressed Neil directly. "To my lord, money is nothing. A year ago he found the hidden temple of Tung, and all its unlocked treasures are under his hand. I am empowered to draw upon them to secure any rarity. What say you to a sword of 7 spells, a never-fail shield, a necklet of Lyra gems, such as not even the king of the great kingdom can hope to hold?" Neil's hands swept from cupping Afrita to the haft of his axe. The pseudo-dragon flickered out of sight within the collar of his boarskin cape. "I say, trapper of beasts, shut your mouth, lest you find steel renders it unshittable for all time." There were red sparks in the berserker's deep-set eyes. His own lips pulled back, showing fangs that had given him his war name. Helagret looked lightly. "Temper your wrath, man. I shall not try to wrest your treasure from you, but since this is my mission, there lies no great harm in my asking, does there?" His tone was faintly derisive, suggesting that Neil was too closely akin to those bristled and tusked beasts whose fury he could share to be treated with on the true human level. "If you will not deal with me on one matter, warriors, perhaps we can bargain on another. I must transport my animals to Faraz. Unfortunately, my hired guards indulge too deeply in the wine the 2 harpies is so noted for. They now rest in the stranger's tower, where they have been given a period to reflect upon their sin of indulgence. I have cartmen, but they are no fighters. If your passage is westward, I can pay fighting wages until we reach the castle of my lord. Then he may well be so delighted with what I bring him that he will be even more open-handed." He smiled, looking from one to another of them. Milo smiled in return. What game the other might be playing, he had no guess. But no one could possibly be as stupid as this beast trainer presented himself. To Ingrid had passed the sign that this was not their watcher. Yet the very way he attempted to force himself upon their company was out of character. We do not ride to Faraz. Milo tried to make his voice as guilelessly open as the others. Helagret shrugged. It is a pity, warriors. My lord has had unusual luck in 2 of his recent quests. It is said that he is preparing for a third. He has been given a certain map, a southward map. I wish him luck for the 3rd time, then, Milo returned. We go our own way, Master Trainer. As for your guards there, are those implantly here, who need Phil for their purses and are willing to take his word out for the road. A pity. Erlagret shook his head. It is in my mind we might have dealt well together. Swordsman, you may discover that pushing away the open end of fortune may bring a heal in return. You threaten, best chaser? Sorry, wrong voice. You threaten, best chaser? Neil took a step forward. Threaten? Why should I sorry. Wrong voice again. Sorry. Threaten? Why should I threaten? What have you to fear from me? Helagret moved both his hands wide apart, as if displaying that he was not in the least challenging a short-tempered berserk. What indeed? Ingrid spoke for the first time, man of Ethereal. For the first time, that smile was lost. There was a spark for a second in the dark eyes, quickly gone. Then Helagret nodded as one who has solved a problem. I am not ashamed of my blood, elf. Are you of yours? Yet he did not wait for any answer, but tamed abruptly and moved away. Answer. Milo felt a faint warmth at his wrist and looked hurriedly to the bracelet. It was glowing a little, but none of the dice swung. An exclamation from Neil brought his attention elsewhere. Ingrid held out his hand. There was a bright blaze of color, and he was staring hard at the dice, which were a whirl for him, using, Milo guessed, every fraction of control he could summon to aid in their spin. The glow flashed off, yet Ingrid continued for a long moment to watch the dice. Then he raised his head. The half-blood did not succeed. In so much is the wizard right. What was it? Milo was irritated at his own ignorance. It was plain that Ingrid had encountered, or perhaps they had all faced some unknown danger. But the nature of it... He keeps company. Neil had softened his usual heavy growl to a mutter. From under the shadow of his helm he stared across the length of the market. There, the circle of flares and lanterns gave a wavering light, perhaps not enough to betray some lurkers, but the varnished shine of Helagret's clothing had caught a gleam. He must have retreated very quickly to reach that distance. He stood before another now, who wore a loose robe that was nearly the same color as the drab shadows. Since the hood of the robe was pulled well forward, it was only a half-visible form. He speaks with a druid, Ingrid returned. As to what he tried, he is of the half-blood from the Hither Hills. The cold note of repudiation in that was plain enough to hear. He sought to lay upon us ascending, perhaps to bend us to his will, but not even the full blood can work such alone. There must be a uniting of power. Therefore, this Helagret merely furnished a channel through which some other power was meant to flow. He established eye contact, voice contact. Then he struck. What power? The druid? Hazarded Milo. Chaos? Slowly, Ingrid shook its head. The druid, perhaps, but there was no spelling I have ever heard of. He carried on him some talisman which had its own smell, and that was alien. However, once more the elf regarded his wrist and the bracelet on it. Alien too? That was. I could defeat it. Yes, the wizard was right, brothers. There was more animation in his usually calm voice than Milo had heard before. We must hone and sharpen our minds, even as the dwarf swordsmiths hone and sharpen their best of blades. For it is that power which may be both shield and weapon to us, past our present knowing. Well enough, Neil said. He clenched his huge fist. With my hand thus, or with the axe, or with the likeness I have wont to. Now he raised his fist to strike it lightly against his helmet. With its crowning boar. There are few who dare face me, yet to use the mind so, that will be a new experience. They have gone. Milo had been watching Elagret and the shadowy figure behind him. I think it is well we follow their example, and that speedily. Ingrid was already moving toward the horses the trader had loosed from his picket lines, stringing altar ropes together. It was apparent that the elf was of a similar mind to the swordsman. End of chapter. And I take a sip of water. Make them too. Better? Okay. Chapter 5. A Ring of Forgotten Power. Dawn was more than just a strip of cold grey across the sky when they at last rode out of the main gate southward. Milo, knowing that the wastes and mountains lay before them, had bought light saddles that were hardly more than pads equipped with loop stirrups and various straps to which were attached their small bundles of personal clothing and the water bottles needed in the wilderness. Water bottles, obviously. He had questioned Ingrid carefully as to the countryside before them, to the elf. For all his woodcraft and ranger scout training, admitted freely that what little he knew of the territory came through the rumors and accounts of the authors. Once they were across the river and into the plains of Coeland, he must depend largely upon his own special senses. Coeland, okay. They strung out the extra mounts on leads, Waymark volunteering to manage them, while their 4 pack ponies snored and whinnied in usual complaint under burdens that had been most carefully divided among them. Waymark is the bard. Having splashed across at an upper ford, they angled due south. Not Italian, English, south. Mainly because, now very easy to see, stood the dark stronghold of the wizard Kayark, apart from Grey Oak's walls. A place all men with their wits about them knew well to avoid. As long as it was in sight, Divdine told his prayer beads with energy, and even the elf avoided any glance in that direction. Divdine is the cleric. Okay? Not all their company were at ease mounted. Gult, the lizard folk, did not croak out any complaint, but Ingrid had to work his own magic on the steadiest of the mounts before the lizardman could climb on the back of the sweating, fearful horse. Once in the saddle, he dropped behind, since the other horses were plainly upset by his close presence. Perhaps that was an advantage, for the ponies crowded ahead of him, keeping close to the human members of the company. Milo wondered a little at the past of the skill-skinned fighter. They had all been coaxed in or by a game. But why had the role of a scale-skinned fighter been chosen by the one who had become guilt? If guilt had not been shackled to them by the common factor of the bracelet, Milo would have questioned that he belonged in their party at all. Neil Fangtooth made no secret of the fact. He both loathed and mistrusted the entirely alien fighter. He rode as far from guilt as he could, pushing up to the fore by but a short distance behind Ingrid. None of the other oddly assorted adventurers made any attempt to address the lizardman except when it was absolutely necessary. Grey-brown grass of the plain grew tall enough to brush their shins as they rode. Milo did not like crossing this open land, where there was not even a clump of trees or taller brush to offer shelter. By the 4 teeth of Gar, they could be plainly marked from the walls of Greyhawk itself, did any with some interest in them stand there now. Without thinking, he said as much aloud. "I wonder," startled out of his apprehensive thoughts. The swordsman turned his head. Yvelie was not looking at him. Rather, her gaze slanted back toward the river and the rise of the city beyond it. "We ride geese bound," she commented, now meeting his eyes. "What would it profit the wizard if we were picked up before we were even 1 day on our journey? Look there, swordsman." Her fingers were as brown as her face, but the fore one was abnormally long, and that now pointed to the grass a short distance beyond their line of march. Milo was startled, angry with himself at his own inattention. To go into this land without one's senses always alert was worse than folly, and to have betrayed his carelessness shamed him. For what he saw proved that Yvelie might well be right in her opinion that they were not naked to the sight of an enemy. The grass, which was so tall that it stung if one pulled at it, quivered along a narrow line that exactly matched their own line of march. He did not doubt that quiver marked a slight distortion, only visible to them in this fashion, masking them from aught but a counterspell strong enough to break it. "It cannot last too long, of course," the battle maid continued. "I know not how strong a power worker this Istaspace may be, but if it can hold our cover so until we gain the tributary of the void, the land beyond is less of an open plain." "You have ridden this way before?" Milo asked. If the girl knew these southwest lands, why had she not said so? Here they depended upon Ingrid as a guide when the elf had admitted he used instinct alone. She did not answer him directly, only asked a question of her own. "You have heard of the raving of Keodless?" For a moment he sought a way into his memory, which had so many strange things hidden in it. Then he drew a deep breath. The answer to the name she spoke, it was something out of the darkness that ever lurked menacing at the heels of any who swore by law. It was treachery so black that it blotted the dark pages of chaos, own accounting. That so hideous a man might retch out his guts if it took too long upon it. "But that lies years behind us, yes." Her voice was as even and controlled as Ingrid's ever was. "And why should such as a think upon that horror? I am one born to the sword way. You know the practice of the Norton bands. Those who ride under the unicorn have a choice after their 30th year. They may then wish a union to become a mother if the high-homed lady favors an enlargement of her followers. Then the child, being always a girl, is trained from birth in the ways of the one clan of her heritage. My mother, having put aside the unicorn and followed her will of union, became swords mistress and teacher. But our clan fell into hard days, and there were 3 harvests that were too thin to support any but the old and the very young. Therefore, those who were still hearty of arm, who could ride and fight, and my mother was a Valkyrie, Yveli's head lifted proudly, took counsel together. They were by custom unable to join the companies again, but they had such skills as were valuable in the open market, wherein sword and spear may be lawfully sold. My clan, there were 25, who swore leadership to my mother. They came then to Greyhawk to bargain settling for their pay in advance, so that they might send back to the clan hold enough to keep life in the bodies of those they cherished. Then, under my mother's command, they took service with a rigor of war. Milo's memory flinched away from what that name summoned. Those who were lucky died. Yveli continued dispassionately. My mother was not lucky when they were through with her, but no matter. I have settled 2 debts for that, and the settlement hangs out at the moon shrine of the clan. I took blood hot when I took the sword of a full clan sister. That is why I do not ride with any band, but I am a seeker. And why you came to Greyhawk? He said slowly. But you are not Yveli, remember? We are entrapped in others. She shook her head slowly. I am Yveli. Who I might have been in that other time and place which the wizard summoned for us to look upon does not matter. Do you not feel this also, swordsman? For the first time she turned to look squarely into his eyes. I am Yveli, and all that Yveli is and was is now in command. Unless this Istaspes plays some tricks with us again, that is how it will remain. He has laid a guess on us, and that I cannot break. But when this venture lies behind us, if it ever will, then my blood heart will bind me once more. 2 offerings I have made to the horned lady. There are 2 more to follow, if I live. He was chilled. That about her which had attracted his notice had been but a veil hiding an iced inner part at which no man could ever warm himself. His wonder at their first entrapment grew. Was it some work of their own original characters that had determined the roles they now assumed? Desperately, he tried now to remember the game. All it was so blank in his mind that he wondered for a moment of chill if all Istaspes' story had been illusion and lies. But the band on his wrist reminded that the encirclement of jewel-pointed dice was proof in part of the wizard's story. They spoke no more. In fact, there was very little sound from the whole party. Merely the toot of hooves, and now and then a sneeze or cog as some of the chaff from the crushed dead grass arose to tickle nose or throat. The sky was filled with a sullen haze to veil the sun. When they were well out on the plains, Milo called a halt. They fed their animals from hands full of grain, but did not let them graze, watering each from liquid poured into their helmets, before they ate the tug bread of which a man must chew a mouthful a long time before he swallowed. Gult brought out of a pouch of his own so small, hard-dried fish, and ground them into swallowable powder with his formidable array of fangs. Milo noted that those lines in the grass had halted with them, even joined before and behind the massing of their company, as if to enclose them in a wall. He pointed them out. Both the elf and Devdine nodded. Illusion, Ingrid said indifferently. But the cleric had another term. Magic, which means we cannot tell how long it will provide us with cover. He repeated Evil's warning. The river has some cover, The girls brushed the crumbs of bread carefully into one palm, cupping them there preparatory to finishing off her meal. "There are rocks there." Ingrid turned his head sharply, his slanted eyes searching her face, as if it demanded access to her thought. Evilly licked up the crumbs got to her feet. Her expression was as stolid and remote as Ingrid's own. "No, comrade elf," she said, answering the question he had not asked. "This road has not been mine before. But I have good reason to know it. My kin died in the raving of Cao the Less." Ingrid's narrow, long-fingered hand moved in a swift gesture. The heads of the other three men turned quickly in her direction. It was Neil who spoke. "That was a vile business." Divdine muttered over his beds, and Wymark nodded emphatic agreement to the berserker's comment. If Gult knew of what they spoke, he gave no sign. His reptilian eyes were nearly closed. However, a moment later, his croaking voice jerked them all out of terrible memory. "The spell fades." He waved a cleaved forefinger at those lines. Ingrid agreed. There is always a time and distance limit on such. We had better ride on. I do not like this open land. Nor would he, for those of his race. Nor would he, for those of his race, preferred woods and heights. Gul was right. That line in the grass was different. Now it flickered in and out, being sometimes clearly visible, sometimes so faint, Milo thought it vanished altogether. They mounted in some speed and headed on. The drabness of the sky overhead, the faded grass underfoot, mingled into a single hue. None spoke. They stepped up their pace, since to reach water by nightfall was important. There were flattened water skins on one of the pack ponies. They had thought it better not to fill them in Grey Oak. Such action would have informed any watcher that they headed into the plains. They depended upon the fact that Kioland did have three tributaries of size feeding the main stream, which finally angled north to become a mighty river. As they went now, Milo kept an eye on the line of distortion. When it at last winked out, he felt far more naked and uneasy than he had in the streets of Grey Oak itself. Ingrid reined in. "There is a water not far ahead. They can smell it even as I..." He indicated the horses and ponies that were pushing forward eagerly. "But water in such a barren land is a lodestone for all life. Advance slowly while I scout ahead." There was some difficulty in restraining the animals. However, they slowed as best as they could, as Ingrid loosed his own mount in a gallop. The elf knew very well what it was about. He found them sheltered snug against detection. Visual detection that was, for one could never be sure if someone of the power were screening or casting about to pick up intimations of life. It was beyond the skill of all save a near adept to hide from such discovery. Rocks by the river had been something of an understatement. Here the stream shrunken in this season before the coming of the late fall rains. At its bed some distance below the surface of the plain. There was a lot of tall brush and small trees to mark its length, and at the point where Ingrid had led them, something else. Water running wild, and some previous season had beaten out a large section of the bank. Below, a projection of rock forming a cave, open-ended to be sure, but peeling up brush would suffice to mask that. In such a place they made their fire. The thought of that normal and satisfying heat and light somehow was soothing to the uneasiness Milo was sure they all shared. They had not discussed it. They watered the animals after stripping them of their saddles and packs, and put them on picket ropes to graze the scanty grass along the shrunken lip of the stream. Milo, Neil, Yveli, and Wymark used their swords to chop brush, bringing the larger pieces to form a wall against the night, shorter lengths to provide them with some bedding. Tug, the soil and sand beneath that overhang were not too unyielding. Divdine busied himself with arranging the armloads they dragged in, while Ingrid had prowled off on foot, eating along the water, but both his nose and his eyes alert. He had found them this temporary camp, but his instincts to prepare against surprise must be satisfied. Gould squatted in the water, prying up small stones, his talons stepping downward now and then to transfer a wriggling catch to his mouth. Milo, watching, schooled himself against revulsions. If the lizardman could so feed himself, it would mean that there would be lesser inroads on the provisions later. But he wanted no closer glimpse of what the other was catching. They did have their fire, a small one, fed by dried drift, near smokeless. Tug the lizardman appeared to have little liking for it. Of us for closer company with these of human and elfin kind, the rest sat in a half-circle near it. They would have a night guard, but as yet it was only twilight, and they need not set up such a patrol. Milo stretched out his hands to the flames. It was not that he was really chilled in body, it was the strangeness of this all that gnawed upon him now. Tug Milo Yegon had camped in a like manner many times before. The vestiges of that other memory returned to haunt him. "Swordsman!" He was startled out of his thoughts by the urgency of that voice, so much so his hand went to his sword hilt as he quickly glanced up, expecting to see some enemy that had crept past the elf by some trick. Only it was not Ingrid who had spoken. Rather, Divdine leaned forward, his attention centered on Milo's hands. "Swordsman, those rings." "Rings?" Milo once again extended his hands into the firelight. His attention had been so centered on the bracelet and what power it might have over him, or how he might possibly bend it to his will, that he had forgotten the massive thumb rings. Apparently they were so much a part of the man he had become that he was not even aware of their weight. One oval and cloudy, one oblong, green, veined with red. Neither seemed to be any gem of sure price, while the settings of both were only plain bands of a very pale gold. "What of them?" he asked. "Where did you get them?" Divdine demanded, a kind of anger in his face. He pushed past Yveli as if he did not see her, and, before Milo could move, he squatted down and seized both the swordsman's wrists in a tight grasp, raising those captive hands closer to his eyes, peering avidly first at one of the stones and then to the other. "Where did you get them?" he demanded the second time. "I do not know." "Not know? How can you not know?" The cleric sounded angry. "Do you forget who we are?" Yveli moved closer. "He is Milo Yegon, swordsman, just as you are Divdine cleric, but our memories are not complete." "You tell me what they are." Milo's own voices rang out. "What value do they have? Is your memory clear on that?" He did not struggle to free himself of the cleric's grip. The rings were queer, and if they carried with them something either helpful or harmful, and this recorder and treasure of strange knowledge knew it, the quicker he himself learned too, the better. "They are things of power." Divdine never glanced up from his continued scrutiny of the two stones. "That much I know, even with my halved memory. This one?" He drew the hand with the green stone a fraction closer to the firelight. "Do you not see something about it to remind you of another thing?" Now Milo himself studied the stone. All he could pick out was a meaningless wandering of thread-thin lines with a pinpoint dot, near too small to distinguish with the naked eye, here and there. What do you see, then? He did not want to confess his own ignorance, but rather pry out what the cleric found so unusual. It is a map. It is a map. Sorry. There was such certainty in that answer that Milo knew Devdine was convinced. A map. Now Niall and Grieg moved closer. It is too small. Too confused. The berserker shook his head. But the elf, inspecting the ring closely, reached for a small stick of the drift they had piled up, to feed the fire, and with his other hand smoothed a patch of the hearth in the best light those flames afforded. Hold still, he commanded. Now, let us see. Looking from stone to ground and back again, he put the point of his stick to the hearth, and there scribbled a squiggle of line or a dot. The pattern he produced showed nothing that made sense as far as Milo was concerned, but the cleric studied the drawing with deep interest. Yes, yes, that is it, he cried triumphantly, as Ingrid had the last dot and sat back on his heels to survey his own handiwork critically. However, nothing in that drawing awoke any spark of memory in Milo. If it had been of some value to the swordsman part of him, that particular memory was too deeply buried now. Nothing I ever see. Nothing I ever seen. Neil delivered his verdict first. It was the bard who looked. And judging by the expression on our comrade's face, he nodded to Milo. He is baffled as you, berserker. Even though he seems to be in full possession. Well, will your prayers, now he turned to Devdine, or your scout eye, he addressed Ingrid, provide us with an answer? As a bard, I am a far wanderer, but these lines mean naught to me. Or can the battle maiden find us an answer? There was a moment of silence, and then all answered in tones, denying any recognition. Milo twisted free from Devdine's hold. It would seem that this is a mystery past our solving. But why do you wear it? Persisted the cleric. It is my belief that you will have neither of those on you, he pointed to the rings, unless there is a reason. You are the swordsman. Your trade lies with weapons, perhaps one or two simple spells. But these are things of true power. Which power? Evilly broke in. Nor that of a chaos. Devdine made prompt answer. Were that so, Ingrid and I, and even the Skald, will sense that much. Well, if we have in this a map, which leads nowhere, Milo shook his right thumb, then what lies within the other? He took out the other thumb, with the dull and lifeless stone. Devdine shook his head. I cannot even begin to guess, but there is one thing, swordsman. If you are willing, I can try a small prayer spell, and see if thus we can learn what you carry. Things of power are never to be disregarded. Man must go armed against them, for if they are used by the ignorant, then dire may be the result. Sorry. Dying voices is very terrible for me. I repeat the last sentence. Man must go armed against them, for if they are used by the ignorant, then dire may be the result. Milo hesitated. Maybe if he took the rings off, he had no desire to be wearing them, while Devdine experimented. Only when he endeavored to slip either from its resting place, he found they were as firmly fixed as the bracelet. The cleric, witnessing his efforts, did not seem surprised. It is even as I have thought. They are set upon you, just as the geese was set upon us all. Then what do I do? Milo stared at the bands. Suddenly they had changed into visible threats. He shrank from things of power, which he did not in the least understand, and which, as Steve Dine had pointed out, might even choose somehow to act, or make him act by another's control. "Do you wish me to try a seeing?" Milo frowned. He did not want to be the focus of any magic. But on the other hand, if this held any danger, he needed to know as soon as possible. "All right," he replied with the greatest reluctance. End of chapter 5. And here we stop. We are at 1/3 of the novel. I think. I'm not very sure of that. Page 45, anyway. Next time we'll read chapter 6 and 7. I don't remember how many chapters is in. Now I... Okay. 18. So, next time we read chapter 6, 7 and 8, because I want to read 2 chapters during the week, and because the next time is tomorrow, Saturday, and I have more time, so maybe I can read more. I hope. That's it. It's all for today, and good evening. To the next time. Bye.